Now let's talk about what set our batteries apart from other batteries. First of all, the technology. Now these are lithium ion. Previously or even currently people are still using lead acid battery. Deep cycle lead acid battery, 7 amp hour or so on their kayaks to run all the accessories, or the 12 volt, be it a fish finder, LED lights and so on. So a lead acid battery, they will rate you that generally they'll give you about 300 to 350 life cycle. Now that life cycle is based on a 50% depth of discharge, DOD. So meaning if you discharge it down to 50% and charge it back up, you can get 350 cycles from your lead acid battery. And if you go less than that, guess what? Your life cycle of 350 or so will start to go downhill quite rapidly, depending on how often, how frequently you drain your battery below the 50% mark. So a 7 amp battery, generally a 7 amp hour lead acid, the rectangular ones. So at 50%, guess what? 3.5 amp hour. That's all you're supposed to drain it down to. And it's quite hard to monitor, especially when you're on the water. I mean, how do you gauge it's 50%? Well, you know, so even with that, you're already using half of the available capacity if you want that good life cycle out of your battery, out of your investment. So now moving forward, these are 17, this is 17.5 amp hour, 7 amp hour. Let's check the weight. Turn me trusty scale on. Here we go. We're in grams. So with this battery, 448 grams, okay? 446 grams. And the 17.5 amp hour, 12 volts comes in at 917 grams, okay? Under 1 kilo. So that is totally amazing. Now for the lead acid, you're just gonna check online, just put in, 7 amp hour lead acid battery, and you can see the weight. This is just a fraction of the weight. It's totally amazing. Very super lightweight. And now let's talk about the discharge of our batteries. How many cycles can you get out of it? Fantastic that they are lightweight, and the footprint is only yay small, very small. Now let's talk about the cycles of the 17.5. You can get 4,200 cycles on the 17.5 with a discharge current of 1 amp. Okay, we've set a bench line of 1 amp discharge. So with this, you can get 4,200 cycles at 1 amp. That's discharging it down to 90%. 90% is, now you don't even have to worry, are you going to go over 90? No, because our battery management system, the BMS, which is basically the intelligent, it's a control board, it's the intelligent part, which stands between the drawer, which is your appliance, and the actual battery, the raw battery cell. So between it, there's an intelligence that tells it to turn off or to give power. So as far as safety, we'll talk about it later on. So let's talk about the discharge cycle. So 4,200 at 1 amp, and this baby one here, the 7 amp hour, can give you 600 discharge cycle down to 90% at 1 amp. Now let's talk about why 1 amp. Now the Lowrance Hook 4, the Lowrance Hook 4 fish finder, and the Garmin Striker 4, they will draw 0.4 amps, so 400 milliamps. And for those using larger fish finders, such as the Lowrance Elite 7 Ti2, which is a 7-inch monitor, and actually, for a matter of fact, any 7-inch monitor, they would generally all draw about 1 amp current, so it's 1,000 milliamps. Most common fish finder that's available on the market only draw 0.4 amps, so less than the 1 amp bench line that we've set. So now with life cycle and all this, it's all in relation to the capacity of the battery, what the battery cells are rated for, the maximum amperage that each cell can give, and each battery is made out of many cells. Of course, this has more cells than this cells, than the 7 amp, because physically it's bigger, more capacity and heavier and so on. So